A corrupt anti-Trump judge humiliates JD Vance in court. He thinks he's above the law, but when his target fights back, karma hits fast, leaving the entire courtroom in stunned silence. The federal courthouse had seen its share of high-profile cases, but today, something felt different. The tension in the air was thick, the kind that made even seasoned attorneys shift uncomfortably in their seats. At the center of it all was Judge Marshall Davis, a man known not just for his rulings but for his unpredictable temper, especially when conservative figures stood before him. Inside his chambers, Davis slammed a folder onto his desk, his frustration evident. "I don't care who he is," he growled at his clerk. "Vice president or not, he's getting no special treatment in my courtroom." His words dripped with contempt, a sentiment he no longer bothered to conceal. Meanwhile, outside, JD Vance stepped into the courtroom with the quiet confidence of a man who knew he had nothing to hide. He wasn't here for politics. He wasn't here for a spectacle. He was here for the truth. But the moment he entered, the shift in atmosphere was palpable. Judge Davis wasted no time making his disdain known. "Well, if it isn't Washington's golden boy," he sneered. "Just so we're clear, Mr. Vance, your title means nothing in my courtroom. You will be treated like any other witness." Vance met the judge's stare, his expression unwavering. "Crystal clear, Your Honor. I'm simply here to testify to the truth." Davis scoffed. "Truth," he repeated mockingly. "We'll see about that." The gallery, packed with journalists and spectators, watched with bated breath. Something was off. Davis wasn't just being firm, he was hostile, openly dismissive in a way that went beyond standard courtroom decorum. Even the prosecution seemed taken aback. The defense attorney stood, prepared to present the opening argument. But before he could get past the first sentence, Davis slammed his gavel down. "Enough of the grandstanding. We don't need a campaign speech. Stick to the facts, or I'll hold you in contempt." Vance exchanged a glance with his legal team. He had dealt with bias before, but this was different. This was personal. And as he studied Davis's rigid posture and the way his fingers twitched over the case files in front of him, Vance knew one thing: this judge had something to hide. And before the day was over, everyone in that courtroom would see it for themselves. The tension in the courtroom was rising by the second. Judge Davis sat at his bench, his fingers tapping against the wooden surface, his eyes sharp with irritation. JD Vance remained composed, unfazed by the judge's obvious hostility. The vice president had seen power-hungry men like Davis before, people who believed their position made them untouchable. But today, Davis was about to learn that no one is above the law. The case was supposed to be straightforward. A prominent businessman, Charles Sterling, was accused of financial misconduct. But from the moment the trial began, it became clear that Judge Davis had no intention of letting it proceed fairly. He interrupted the defense team at every turn, dismissed crucial evidence, and openly mocked Vance's presence in court. "This isn't a Senate hearing, Mr. Vance," Davis sneered, his voice laced with contempt. "Your title means nothing here." Vance didn't flinch. "I'm not here for politics, Your Honor. I'm here for the truth." The judge scoffed. "Truth? We'll see about that." The defense attorney attempted to present financial records proving Sterling's innocence, but Davis shut it down before a word could be spoken. "Irrelevant," he barked. "We're not wasting this court's time with baseless defenses." A murmur spread through the gallery. Even the prosecution team seemed uneasy with the judge's blatant disregard for protocol. Vance took a measured breath. "Your Honor, the evidence we are trying to present is directly tied to the case." Davis slammed his gavel. "I decide what's relevant in my courtroom." That was the moment everything shifted. Vance reached into his briefcase, pulled out a folder, and walked calmly toward the evidence stand. The entire room watched as he placed a stack of documents in front of the court reporter. "These," Vance said, his voice unwavering, "are financial transaction records detailing unexplained offshore payments. Payments that align perfectly with cases presided over by you, Your Honor." A hush fell over the courtroom. Davis's face twitched. His fingers tightened around the gavel. "This is outrageous," he spat. "You have no right to bring this into my courtroom." Vance raised an eyebrow. "No right? As an officer of the court, I believe it's my duty to present the truth." Davis's face turned red. "These documents are inadmissible." Vance remained steady. "On what grounds?" Davis hesitated. "They were obtained Improperly. Vance leaned forward slightly. Actually, Your Honor, they were subpoenaed legally. He let his words hang in the air, letting the weight of them sink in. And they show a pattern of bribes connected directly to your rulings. The murmurs in the gallery grew louder. A reporter scribbled furiously in her notebook. The defense attorney took a step closer, staring at the documents. For the first time that day, Davis looked uncertain. His authority, the power he had wielded so carelessly, was slipping through his fingers. Enough of this nonsense, he growled. Mr. Vance, if you continue this charade, I will hold you in contempt. Vance crossed his arms. Perhaps you should take a closer look at the March 15th meeting records before making that threat, Your Honor. Davis froze. His hand, mid-motion, trembled slightly. His eyes darted toward a folder on his desk, a folder he had tried to keep hidden. How do you know about that meeting? He demanded. Vance's expression didn't change. Because, Your Honor, corruption leaves a trail. And yours has finally been uncovered. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Judge Davis sat frozen, his face pale, his authority crumbling before everyone's eyes. The very man who had spent years ruling from his bench with an iron fist was now the one on trial in the court of public opinion. JD Vance didn't move. He held the documents firmly in his hands, his gaze locked onto Davis. The judge had tried to bury the truth, but now, with the weight of undeniable evidence pressing down on him, there was nowhere left to hide. The lead prosecutor finally stood, clearing his throat. Your Honor, in light of this newly revealed financial evidence and the judge's clear conflict of interest, I motion for an immediate review of this case's judicial oversight. Davis's lips trembled. You have no authority to. The evidence speaks for itself, Vance interrupted. His voice was firm, unwavering. This courtroom, this case, the very institution you swore to uphold, it was never yours to manipulate. The courtroom doors swung open. A team of federal agents entered, their presence making the tension even thicker. One of them stepped forward, pulling out a warrant. Judge Marshall Davis, the agent announced, you are under investigation for judicial corruption, obstruction of justice, and abuse of power. Please stand. Gasps filled the room. Even the prosecution, who had suspected misconduct, hadn't expected things to unravel so quickly. The gallery was stunned into silence as the agents approached the bench. Davis clenched the edges of his desk. This is a setup. A political hit job. You're making a mistake. The agent didn't flinch. Sir, please stand. The judge's breaths were shallow now, his hands trembling. He turned toward Vance, eyes filled with venom. You did this. No, Your Honor, Vance replied. You did this to yourself. The agents moved in, taking the judge by the arms. The once powerful man who had intimidated and manipulated from the bench was now powerless, his fate sealed. As they placed the cuffs around his wrists, Davis finally snapped. This isn't over. You think you've won? He glared at Vance. There will always be others like me. Vance's expression remained calm. And there will always be those willing to expose them. The courtroom erupted into murmurs. The truth had finally come to light. The headlines would soon spread. Justice had been served. As the agents escorted Davis away, Vance turned to the defense team. Now, let's get back to what really matters. Justice for the accused. With that, the balance of power had shifted. The system had been tested, but in the end, truth had prevailed. And for those who believed they were untouchable, this was a warning. Justice doesn't belong to the powerful. It belongs to the people. Justice had finally been served, but this was more than just one courtroom victory. It was a warning to all who thought they were untouchable. Judge Davis believed his power was absolute, that he could manipulate the law to serve his own interests, but in the end, the truth shattered his illusion of control. His downfall was not just a moment of reckoning for him, but a symbol of what happens when corruption is left unchecked. Yet, this case is only one piece of a much larger battle. For every corrupt official exposed, there are others still operating in the shadows, believing they can continue abusing their authority without consequences. That's why staying informed and holding the powerful accountable is more important than ever. If you believe in justice, in truth, and in exposing those who think they are above the law, then stand with us. Like this video, drop a comment below, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. The fight for transparency and fairness isn't over. It never is. But together, we can ensure that corruption is exposed, that the truth is heard, and that justice will always prevail. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.